Okay, we got a handful of questions, and I don't think we'll be able to get through them all. So I'll give you a couple. What about Wi-Fi from neighboring homes? How do we protect against that?
Yeah, first of all, the amplitude or the intensity of any electromagnetic radiation decreases with the square of the distance. That means the further away you are, the better. And if you have stone walls on a house, they're quite protective. If it's just cardboard and the typical 2x4 structure, it does not protect, but it at least with the distance it diminishes. But there is a German company that does business in the US called Institute of Building Biology, and there is a way of completely shielding your home. We did that with the office. It's a wall paint that is electric conductive, and basically you create a Faraday cage around your home, and that works absolutely beautifully. It costs a bit of money. It's not that expensive. There's curtains, with cloth that deflects the microwave rather than getting it in, and so you can make every home safe. It's a one-time investment. It's just difficult when you're poor and you live in an apartment. Then it's more difficult. You can use 3 layers of aluminum foil towards your neighbor, and that's a pretty good defense. So you put it as wallpaper, and we do that with patients. Yeah.
An interesting caveat to that is schizophrenia. Since for decades, our schizophrenics have been putting tinfoil on their heads and around, and we've called it crazy. And in hindsight, it was their intuition, I believe, really, unmasking the reality that, they were telling us that people were trying to control their thoughts, and so they're putting tinfoil on their head. Now, the science is starting to prove out, holy shit, we can control people's thoughts through EMF. And so, my psychiatric population that I take care of, I really have a huge heart for. They're very challenging. My longest standing patient, I've been taking care of her for 30 years, nearly it feels like. But she just goes and goes and goes. And when I first met her decades ago, she was so sick. She was on 32 medications, 17 of which were centrally active drugs that the psych world had put her on. She was just nearly comatose. And now today she's on 0 psychotropic drugs, and she's struggles to be functional in our society, but she's become one of my closest held mediums. Like, she will be clairvoyant in what's going to happen to me in the coming weeks and months, and she'll suddenly call me, and I'll try to answer, because she'll ramble for a while, and then she'll deliver exactly what's about to happen, and I usually won't know until a month later, and I'll look back and I'll be like, oh my gosh, Robin called it. Like, she's got it figured out. And so it's just humbling to realize that what we call as crazy, the doctors that we call crazy, are those that are now, being found out to be the honest truth. And I just wanted to recognize Dr. Cowan and Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. I could not possibly be where I am today without these kind of guys going ahead of me and being so brave and cutting a new path. And so when I entered this space, I had community. And these guys really were without it for a long time. So can we just have a round of applause for the courage?
I just had a comment. I happened to run into a guy recently. You might want to write this down. His name is Brian Hoyer. I don't remember his website, but he will come to your house and test the EMF exposure, and then you can actually do a room where you sleep. So you're at least in there for 8 to 10 hours, sort of like you said, with the curtains and everything. And that might help as well. Yeah, shielded healing, that's right. I did have one other comment. This is a little bit off the subject, and I'm not sure whether I should say it, but since I already started, I think I should. One of the things that's so interesting to me, which that I can't help but thinking of this for years, and that is, just as a sort of general comment about where we're at. If you could, and so I'm sure you know by now, I like to have people imagine things. So imagine you were a dolphin doctor, and you were an expert in dolphin health, and you were called to the Arctic Circle because there was a sick dolphin, or maybe a bunch of sick dolphins. And you knew that these dolphins had lived in this place for hundreds, thousands, maybe more years. Do you think the first thing you would say is, I think this dolphin has a genetic disease? Do you think the first thing you would say is, I think this dolphin has stress or some idiopathic, I'm not a happy dolphin? Isn't the first question you would ask, and since Zach has already improved the French language of our visit, isn't the first thing you would ask, did somebody put some shit in the water here? And when I grew up, I used to have trouble with the frogs outside of my house because they made a racket, and I hated that, so I couldn't sleep, so I would tape my windows shut. And then over time, because there was a wetland, the frogs died. And if you had taken a slice of that, say 10 years before the frogs all died, and you had taken a frog and the frog's color doesn't look good and its eyes aren't good and it's not reproducing the way it should, and you took it to a frog doctor and you say, what do you think is wrong with this frog? And they say, well, we should do a test and test your MTHFR and test the B26 levels. And I'm not saying anything against those. But you know what? Somebody put something in the water. In fact, they did. And so how do we accept if your child's eyes don't look good, their skin doesn't look good, it can't reproduce, and you take them to a people doctor, and the people doctor says, genetic, stress, idiopathic, see you later. And why do we think that's okay? Next question.
Oh, I have one thing on that. So a really simple practical thing for EMF is very inexpensively on Amazon, you can get a body voltage meter to see how much electricity is actually affecting your personal body. And one of my favorites that Dr. Klinghardt has some beautiful research about is rosemary tincture. You could add it to your drinking water, and it's very, obviously here we have rosemary hedges. You know, the stuff grows no matter what you do to it. So it's very easy to grow and make a tincture out of.
So I also have this energy armor bracelet, which I have no idea if it works, but I put it on and I had a good day, and then for the rest of your life, you can't take it off because you think something bad will happen to you. And the other thing is Rudolf Steiner said, make clothes out of peat and wear those, and that will protect you against all the evil influences of the world. I don't know whether that's true, and as far as I know, nobody has made clothes out of peat, but if you want a business, I will help you promote it.
It's just a practical thing. There is an app you can put on your phone. It's called Wi-Fi Analyzer, and it gives you the exact amount of cell phone towers and things around you and what the actual dose of radiation is that you get. The only thing is
You gotta have your phone on.
you have to have a cell phone, but the other thing is that Apple disallows this app because Apple doesn't want you to know how much radiation you're exposed to. Apple has become the most evil monster next to Monsanto, has become the most evil company operating in the US. And the next one, I think I briefly showed you, Google disables every article on vaccines that's there. So use a different search engine. By the way, I showed briefly the literature on the cohort. There is a cohort study that just was mentioned. It does not exist. There is a beautiful cohort study. It shows the 14 times higher incidence of severe allergies and disabilities in children in the vaccinated group. That article I put on the memory stick, and so hopefully it's going to be available through the organization here. Yeah? And you should read it. It blows your head when you see these studies it's in the Journal of Translational Science. This is one of the highly ranked scientific journals, you know. And people say still, even vaccine experts, oh, there's never been a cohort study done, you know, comparing one group. It's there. So, but yeah, we want more, you know, because it goes like that. Oh, it's only one study, right? We need 50,000 before it can. But we had that with mercury. Amalgam is still placed, and there's over 5,000 studies, good peer-reviewed say that shows that mercury does not belong in your mouth, and still the ADA says there's no studies. So it's like Donald Trump, well, there is no science that there's global warming. It's like, okay, am I on the wrong planet? Am I misunderstanding something?
One last thing on the EMF thing. I totally agree with, you know, the distance thing is key. And I have a lot of patients who spend tens of thousands of dollars to remediate their home and yet spend most of the evening holding their iPad. And that doesn't help. Like, your $10,000 on the house has done nothing for your health, because the biggest toxicity you have is the thing you're holding in your hand. And the most common thing that I see an autistic child walk into my clinic with is a Disney show on their iPad. Almost the last one of them is holding that. And I really believe Disney has created the best drug for the human mind in its programming, the way that it pulses light and energy across a screen, its shapes, its colors, is so riveting for that child's brain. And yet, and this is the tincture, this is the medicine that we are reaching to our own autistic children with. So that's my big warning before that smart guy gets on and takes up all the microphone. I'd say there's one other really cool technology to ameliorate, and that's the bottoms of your feet. And so if you remember to take off your shoes and stand on Mother Earth for a moment, or put a grounding sheet on your bed, bare feet touching earth immediately creates a Faraday cage out of your skin. And the EMF traveling from outside will stop there and not penetrate your internal organs. We were designed to tolerate electromagnetic radiation because we have a sun. The sun is the largest electromagnetic radiation source, and it's never created disease in human biology. It doesn't create skin cancer, by the way. Yeah, that is not from sunshine. That is from a collapse of the immune system in response to solar radiation, perhaps. But I really believe it was when we started wearing shoes that the skin became so toxic, because we lost the radiation barrier when we stopped touching Mother Earth. A rubber-soled shoe is an insulator from that Faraday cage event, and now you're toxic because you're not touching Mother Earth. So get barefoot, and barefoot in the kitchen and pregnant is even better, so just go out.
So hang on, I can't help but say that.
Because we have all the power.
Right. And I'm going to warn you that two things. One, I've never said this publicly before. And two, of all the things I've said to individuals and friends, and I can say some pretty outrageous things, nothing has created such a pushback as what I'm about to say. And I honestly don't have time to go into it, so you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to trust me on this. But there is a successor to the evil that was Walt Disney, and that is Harry Potter. Do not let your children or yourself read, watch, or have anything to do with that. And I'm going to stop right there.
He mentioned Disney, that's mentioned twice now. So I have a patient who works in the movie industry. His company got funding from Disney for many, many millions of dollars to redo the skies in the old Disney movies, to put chemtrails in there. So when people look and say, oh, the chemtrails were always there. True story.
I think our time is up for questions. Is there any final words you want to leave us with besides Harry Potter?
I want to just say, like, laughter is one of the best healing things that we could ever share with each other, and only underneath love. And we all in this room have a lot of love, and we've shared a lot of laughter. And if we can keep that going, we're going to figure this out, and we're going to be okay.
in the 1960, around 1965, when I was still conscious and alive, the largest body of water in Germany is called Bodensee. I don't know the English name of it, and it was dead. There was no life in it at all. And then I was 16, and we organized a meeting amongst other students in my school, and we got together with other schools, and we decided to clean up the lake. And so we organized the thing with television or so, and it became like a national movement. And today, this lake has the highest biodiversity of any lake in Europe. It is completely alive, and you can't even swim the thing. When you swim, you're amongst fish and beautiful aquatic plants. So I just wanted to say that nature is incredible in its ability to recover if we give it a fair chance. And that takes all of us to help, but it's not going to be that difficult. As long as money reigns the planet. Anyway, you say something.
Don't get me started about money.
Thank you, everybody.